on the other side of it, what we're not going to read about is an exorcism where they come down from the mountain and there's this young man, young boy, who Jesus drives the demon out. So again, we continue with that little pattern that we see where Jesus goes up on a mountain to pray. He comes down and there's a throng of people. He heals them without any merit from them, only by his grace and mercy. The last thing I want to say is this is probably 3 weeks, the way Scripture is put together, probably 3 weeks or so before Jesus has his last Passover meal. So, Kurt, all you.
2 Corinthians 3:12 through 4:2. Since then, we have such a hope. We act with great boldness, not like Moses, who put a veil over his face to keep the people from Israel from gazing at the end of the glory that was being set aside. But their minds were hardened. Indeed, to this very day, when they hear the reading of the Old Covenant, that same veil is still there, since only in Christ is it set aside. Indeed, to this very day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their minds. But when one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And all of us, with unveiled faces, seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. From this comes from the Lord, the Spirit. Therefore, since it is by God's mercy that we are engaged in this ministry, we do not lose heart. We have renounced shameful things that one hides. We refuse to practice cunning or to falsify God's word, but by the open statement of the truth, we commend ourselves to the conscience of everyone in the sight of God. This is Luke 9:28-37. Now about 8 days after these sayings, Jesus took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of the face changed, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly they saw two men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they had stayed awake, they saw the glory and the two men who stood with him. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Not knowing what he said, while he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him. When the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. And they kept silent in those days, told no one any of the things they had seen. On the next day, when they had come down from the mountain, a great crowd met him.
Let's pray real quick. Lord God, thank you for your grace and your mercy. We ask that your word be illuminated to our minds today. You again reveal what you would like to say to each and every one of us in our own understanding and in your own. In your mighty will and majesty name we pray. Amen. So, I'd like to say, to start, there are things that happen in your life that you never forget. And I would put to you that God uses those very things to allow you to know in time that he was right alongside you. And I will start by sharing this particular account of a 16-year-old guy that worked at a gas station. That 16-year-old guy was me, and I was a happy guy working at a gas station. I got to serve people, and I got to run out. Listen, this is going to sound foreign to some of you. We actually went out and pumped gas in somebody else's car, and then we would check oil and check the air pressure in the tires so that we didn't need any little thing in your car that says you have a low the tire. It was the guy, it was me, who I did it. And so I was the night guy there, and one night I was doing my thing, and I just went into the back room to put money in this floor safe. So I kind of recorded it, put it in the safe, walked around the back, walked over to the cash register, and as soon as I walked up to the cash register, the side door opened, and this guy who came in, it was huge. Now, I know that my perception of huge is different from all of yours. But I'll tell you what was huge no matter what happened was this gun that he had in my face. And it looked like I was looking down one of the Liberty tunnels. And he said, give me everything you have in that cash box. And I don't want any monkey business. There were no monkeys in the room. I just want you to know that that was not his exact diction, okay? So I stood there, paralyzed. I really didn't, okay, so I hit the button and the thing came out. There wasn't a lot of money in there because I just put it in the cash, in the safe. And there was a bunch of change and so I got out whatever I could got out and he said, is that all that's in there? Yeah, that's all that's in there. When you're staring at this hole, it's kind of different. And so all of a sudden he talked more about monkeys, and then he ran. And part of me wanted to go after him for some strange reason, but the other part of me thought, oh my gosh, you were just robbed. And I really couldn't do anything about it. I really couldn't do anything about it. And I was a little cantankerous when I was young, I just want you to know. And I thought, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? And I figured, I better call my mom. First off, probably for a change of pants, but really, I honestly didn't know what to do. I never thought about calling the cops because the gas station was my uncle's gas station. And I thought, my Uncle Bob is going to kill me. Okay? First thought. So my mom says, you what? I said, yeah, that just happened. And she goes, did you call your uncle? I said, no. She goes, did you call the cops? I said, no, I called you. She goes, you call the cops, I'll call your uncle. I said, deal. So the cops came up, and it was a sordid affair. I went from victim all of a sudden to perp. I learned that watching TV, perp. And so I went from one to the other, and the whole time that was going on, I kept thinking about different scenarios. And then later on in life, when I started talking about some of the things that I had faced, that God kind of made me be thankful for, nothing else happened, that was one of the things. We could go for days, but I'm going to stick with that. And in that moment, I learned a couple things. Number one, that we have no idea what's about to happen next. As a matter of fact, it's inconceivable at times, the things that are in front of us. We have no clue. The second thing is that we have no clue what the other persons around us have just experienced or are going to experience, whether they are stressors or emergencies or whatever they are. We have no clue where they are in their cycle. None. And we're trying to deal with these things. So the other part of that is these stressors, these things, these emergencies are temporary. As a matter of fact, it's all kind of temporary when you're looking at it from the eternal point of view. But it's temporary, and the last thing is that whenever we realize in time what happened, we realize that God was right there with us, like as close as our breath. So what is the significance of the Transfiguration? It's told in Matthew, Mark, and Luke by the epiphany that it was, by the description. John refers to it very early in the first chapter as we were witness to his glory. And so as you listen to and read and listen to Kirk read that, the three apostles were faced with something they had no clue what was about to happen. Right? And so in that, we find out that Jesus was probably, what theologians think, probably being strengthened by his visitors, Moses and Elijah. We find out that heaven is closer than we really think, and that the glory of God is right there in front of us if we are in the right position to see it, and if we're allowing Jesus to lead us. Now that's not easy to do, but God was proclaiming in what he said to them about Jesus that this is his seal. Jesus Christ is God in the flesh, doing what God does that we can't normally see. So, in your little note thing, it says this: there are moments or flashes of time and of instance that we never forget. And so I would again propose to you, what if it's those moments in time, those flashes, those instances, those maybe even terrors that we go through, that in time we start to understand what it was about and that God was right along with us. Like as close as our breath. In all three gospel accounts we have these Matthew, Mark, and Luke. We have Peter, James, and John. These three guys are the guys that are always with Jesus whenever there are great matters of faith involved, it seems. I mean, there are speculation as to why it was just these three, but Jesus had the others, and then he had these three. Was he wanting them to see more? I mean, I don't know how he could see more. They saw him walk on water. They saw him feed 5,000 people and 4,000 people, heal people from limb damage, from sight damage, from hearing. They saw a lot. What were they looking? What was God showing these three people? Well, the fact that they were with him and didn't just follow him, they were led by him, allows us to know that Jesus takes us to places. As a matter of fact, he invites us to places with him. And it's up to us, really, to follow. I mean, they were witnesses to great compassion. They were eyewitnesses to things that you and I would probably have our jaws dropped at, and probably at times you've seen things that you really couldn't explain. And that's partly what happened whenever they were coming down the hill. I don't know if you've ever been in that place where you say, holy smokes, I'm not sure the whole story there, but I can't begin to talk about that because I'm not really sure what happened. Has anybody ever asked you, why do you think that happened? And you're like, I don't know. Well, do you think that Jesus maybe knew that these three leaders were going to need some encouragement for the months coming ahead, because Jesus was heading for the cross? And they were his three that would go out and touch the world in a different way. John lived the very longest of all the disciples, probably well into his 90s. I mean, his gospel was written 60 years after the others. Well, 60 years after Jesus, but 30 years after the other. He's the one who lived the longest. James was the first martyr, and Peter was the one who carried the church on his back and was crucified upside down. The scripture reports that. Jesus knew that they would need help. Jesus knew that they would need some information. And so the way that it reads is that Jesus was transfigured. His person, his affect, the person that they knew or was used to seeing, that everything changed. Everything. Suddenly he was aglow, right? It was as white as lightning. As a matter of fact, the way that the Greek words pan out to that is that he was transfigured, he was transformed to something that they weren't used to seeing at all, that he shone bright like lightning, and all of a sudden we see the armor of light and the Father of lights that God is showing through Jesus. Now, don't ask me how they knew it was Elijah and Moses. I don't know. It's revelation, I guess. I mean, is it possible that they could recognize him? I don't think they had a picture of Moses and Elijah in the wall. That's him. That's him. I know that was him. That's not what happened. All we need to know is exactly what God tells us. And at the moment that Moses and Elijah and Jesus were together, that represents all of Scripture. in the same place at the same time. Moses as the law, Elijah as the prophets, and Jesus as the writings in the Word. And it says that the apostles, the disciples, were heavy with sleep. The way tradition understands this is that they were either on Mount Tabor or Mount Hermon. And what that means to us is only this thing. They were either going up this mountain that was 7,200 feet or 9,000 feet. One or the other. But I'm thinking by the time they were at the top of the hill, they were up for a nap. I mean, I've been tired. And who knows what else was going on, but it says they were weighed down with sleep. And we read that weighed down every time the glory of God is around his people. They are pressed down. They are unable to stand. The weight of that glory is something that we normally can't take by the description that's in Scripture throughout the Old Testament and in the New. They fell face down. And it says they were heavy with hypnos. Hypnos is our transliterated word for hypnosis. So they were in this fog, really, in this trance. And then they wake up to this. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Think about you in that situation. Think about something that happened to you that you really, really can't ever forget, but don't really know how it started in the first place. All of a sudden, you were in the middle of that. But this time, I'm going to ask you to put yourself in this position where you look up and you see Jesus glowing. And there's these two men standing there talking with him. And just as you think about that, think about this cloud that moves in. You want to talk about holy smokes? This is it. This is holy smokes, where this cloud moves in. It's probably the same cloud that led the Israelites through the desert. It's the same cloud that was on top of Mount Sinai. It's the same cloud that moves into the Temple of Solomon whenever he's praying, and it's the Shekinah glory of God. And all of a sudden, through this cloud comes this thundering voice that says, "This is my Son, my beloved Son, the one that I've chosen. Listen to him." Now that listen to him might be a little glimpse as to what we heard last week in Can You Hear Me Now? First, Jesus is saying, for those of you who hear, and God is saying to the disciples, listen to him. Because he has some things he needs to say. And you need to hear what he has to say, because you're going to be on this place, in this place, for a little while longer. So the next thing on your little packet there is, in order to be led by Jesus, we have to follow. We have to follow. Because if we're not following Jesus, if we're not listening to what his word says, if we're not taking what Scripture says to us at point blank view, we're not doing what God asks us to do. As a matter of fact, God commands us to do. This is my Son. This is my word. Listen to him. You know, I can't tell you how many times that I've gone to a seminar or a youth event or a growth event. I'm excited to go, but part of me is really fighting. I'm really fighting. I don't have time. I'm busy. I need to go do this, but I don't want to go do this because I don't want to leave that